when you got your first rating on your book from a person that you didn't know, from a complete stranger, meaning that they gave you their unbiased opinion about your book, how did that make you feel?
It was awesome because, it's always nice to receive those ratings from people you do know. You know that there's probably a little bit of bias there. So when you get that first one that is from somebody who you have no idea who this person really is behind the screen, it's oh my God. And mine thankfully was a positive review. I think it was 5 stars. I was like, oh my God, someone actually really likes this.
That's the best to me. That is by far the best validation in the world where a complete stranger, pardon me, gets your story. And not only gets your story, but appreciates your story.
NL Publishing Service Academy proudly presents Listen Up, I Got a Story to Tell podcast with literary success consultant DK Walker, sharing with you writing tips, marketing ideas, publishing information, and inspiring interviews for your author journey. So, without further ado, let's get right into it with DK Walker.
I'm DK Walker, and you're tuned into Listen Up, I Got a Story to Tell podcast, the number one podcast for self-published authors today. And today I am joined by Samantha Renee, author of Council of Myths Origin. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure's all mine. Introduce yourself to my audience. Please tell them a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Samantha Renee. I am originally from Michigan. I currently live in Texas. I've been writing since I was 12 years old. And finally, after 18 years, accomplished the dream of publishing a book and becoming a real author.
Okay, walk me through that process for you, because and I'm assuming that you're self-published, right?
Yes.
Right. So every self-publishing journey is different for each author. Walk me through that, because you said you was writing since you were 13, you said?
12, close
12.
enough.
Okay, 12. You was writing since you were 12. You finally got your book out by the time you're 30. If my math is correct, we're looking at 18 years. So how does that 18-year, from the the mindset of I want to write to actually executing, getting your book, making it physical, that idea from one book idea to having your book become a physical reality. Walk me through that process, please.
Well, I think I decided sometime in high school that I officially wanted to be an author in some capacity. Um, by the time I was a senior, I was literally handwriting a book, like in the middle of my classes. And ended up finishing it, but I didn't want to type it up because I'd already handwritten it and I'd already gone through that process. I'm like, "Eh." But it was good practice for me. But by that time I had to get like a real job and I had started the process of going to college and eventually dropped out of college. Um, but that meant having to work and make money. And so I kind of got behind on the whole focusing on creating worlds and stories. And eventually, when I was in my mid 20s, this idea of what is now the world of Council of Myths just kind of it started to take form and wrote a little bit of it and then got sidetracked by life and uh just mental health. And then eventually I started seriously looking into the process of like, what is it really like to self-publish a book or even go the traditional route? And I ended up connecting with another self-published author who walked me through the process. I finished my manuscript finally, and got an editor, got everything else checked off. And all of a sudden, I finally have a book in the process and, you know, just out there in the world. And I mean, that whole process, from the moment the story kind of took form to throwing it out there or into the world was, I don't know, maybe about 6 years, 5 years, something like that. So it took a while.
Writing your manuscript has been hard enough, so let NL Publishing Service Academy make self-publishing your book easy as possible. From beautifully designed full and ebook covers to uniquely done typesetting and formatting, our goal is to professionally enhance your manuscripts and book covers to give your readers the best reading experience possible. Need marketing tips, tactics, and strategies? We can help you with that. How about branding and broadening the reach of your author platform? Yep, we can help you with that too. So no matter what your self-publishing needs are, NL Publishing Service Academy has you covered. Just head over to www.nlpublishingservices.com for whatever your self-publishing needs are. And now back to the podcast.
All right, right, right. There's no set time for a person to be, bitten by the book writing bug and to actually execute. We all have our way that we, execute on that idea. What is it about self-publishing that you love the most?
Well, the reason I went for self-publishing was the mentor that kind of walked me through the process was she started in traditional and she told me the horror stories of what it's like to go through trad. And the biggest thing that terrified me was not being able to control my own story.
Okay.
And I chose self-publishing because I wanted to be able to write the story I wanted to write. And I think that's the biggest plus of self-publishing is being able to control what you're putting out there.
Okay. And that's understandable. That's definitely understandable. I went and took a look at your book on Amazon where it's available now. So please, listeners of my audience, do me a favor and go pick up a copy of Samantha's book. And I checked out your book on Amazon and it's well received. I think it's 4.5 stars rating. When you got your first rating on your book from a person that you didn't know, from a complete stranger, meaning that they gave you their unbiased opinion about your book, how did that make you feel?
It was awesome because, you know, it's always nice to receive those ratings from people you do know, but you know that there's probably a little bit of bias there. So when you get that first one that is from somebody who you have no idea who this person really is behind the screen, it's like, oh my God. And mine thankfully was a positive review. I think it was 5 stars. I was like, oh my God, someone actually really likes this.
That's the best to me. That is by far the best validation in the world where a complete stranger, pardon me, gets your story. And not only gets your story, but appreciates your story. What are you doing as far as a follow-up to your book? Is this the first in the series?
Yes, it's the first in what is going to be a multi-book series. I don't have a planned end yet, so it's definitely not just a trilogy. It's well beyond that, but um the manuscript for the sequel is done. It just needs to be edited. Which is the thing that's holding me back because it's so expensive to edit professionally. And I'd already had the first book done professionally. Um, and I didn't want to just kind of go off course for the sequel and beyond because it's like, does this completely transform, from book one to book two? Is like this feels a little different. Like she didn't put the same amount of effort into it. But yeah, I have the manuscript done for book two. I'm almost done with the manuscript for book three. So, it's just that it's the financial aspect that's holding me back. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be multiple sequels.
Okay, okay, congratulations. Yeah, the most expensive thing about the self-publishing, process is editing, right? Like, I offer all services besides editing, but I care about actual authors and the outcome of their works. And I'll tell them, like, you can actually, do your own book cover. You can do a host of things yourself, but I don't think any author should, fully commit to editing their own full length novel. Now, if you got something like a short story or, a novella, you might be able to get away with it and not be able to, lessen your work. But if you're working with a full length novel, you definitely best get professional editing services because that's what the majority of the money should be spent with, on your book project. That's just my 2 cents, and that's smart of you to be like, I don't want to, do something else and then not have that, that can continuality with the from the first book to the second book, not a problem. So, what is your plans to actually, get the second book out of there far as, are you looking to other avenues? Because some authors trade, certain skills to editors and vice versa. Like if you're capable of doing something else and editor like, okay, I need that service and I can do your book for, either free or a discounted price. Have you looked into anything like that?
I haven't actually. But I mean, that would be an interesting thing to look into for sure.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to ask like bartering of services, like, within the community. And it depends on what skills that you have. And I don't want that to go over my listening audience's head, right? As a self-published author, you'll start to acquire skills that other people don't have. You'll start to acquire how to effectively market on social media. You'll start to acquire these skills. And so sometimes you'll come in contact with somebody that needs a skill that you have and vice versa. So instead of like thinking that you always have to pay, it doesn't hurt to ask and have a side conversation to see where it goes from there.
Absolutely.
And to say the least. And speaking about marketing, what are your marketing efforts when it comes to your book?
Um, I have been trying to figure out how to properly utilize TikTok for the last, I mean, just basically ever since it was released. So, I mean, it's been about 9, 10 months now. Um, for the other aspect of it, like I'm trying to cross post to other platforms, but I don't know. I feel like TikTok's probably my best platform to try to get eyes on things. Trying to be creative in the things that I'm doing. Um, because I'm not really one to follow trends, but I mean, I do want it to be unique in the way that I'm trying to reach people, and the content that I'm putting out because my book is so different from I mean, other things that, you know, I got to think a little creatively about what it is that I'm doing to be like, hey, here's my book, here's what it's about, and hopefully people grab onto that.
Okay, cool, 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 cool. That's definitely what's up. Speaking about being different when it comes to marketing your book, have you honestly assessed your target readers first? And so what happens, a lot of first time authors, they fail to do so. And then when they fail to readily identify who their book is actually for, the marketing process is so much harder because now you have a product, but you have no audience to buy that product. Authors need to keep in mind that books are nothing but products, and readers are nothing but consumers. And so before you release a product, it's always best to know, like, okay, I know that this book is in demand with these people. And so what happens, my advice to, first time authors, first time self-published authors is to always, find out exactly who you're writing this book for. Do you have a mailing list that are you growing a mailing list or do you have a mailing list?
I have a Substack. So, I mean, that's where my newsletter goes out of. So samantharenee.substack.com. I try to publish every few weeks. But I mean, that's where people can find me, where I keep everyone updated on what's going on, send out my personal recommendations about things, etc.
Okay, okay. Well, which is a smart thing to do. You always want to And don't get me wrong, social media is a great place, but if you don't have your own digital real estate, which is the best to always have, to and that way you can always readily get in front of your audience when you get ready and you're not subjected to the algorithms of social media. Um, Before I bring this to a close, where do you see yourself before I bring this interview to a close? What do you see yourself as an author within the next, let's say, 5 years?
Hopefully having grown my audience a little bit more, um, and at least have one more book out. Trying to keep expectations real. Cause I mean, I don't want to set totally unrealistic goals and then just find myself completely just disheartened because that's been one of the most tough things about this process is, you set this goal for yourself and you don't meet it and it just becomes completely disheartening. So, small goals at a time. So definitely a little bit bigger audience than I have now. And then, at least one more book out there.
Okay. Well, I definitely think those are attainable goals. And I love your take on setting smaller goals, right? What happens is, we as creators, we have these grandiose ideas and we see like, so many things that we want, so many ideas we want to create, so many things. But what happens is we set that bar so high, not realizing that it's easier to attain a smaller goal in your journey to getting towards your bigger goal, pardon me. And I love your mindset, you know, with that. Where can readers find you at on social media? What are your social media handles?
If I'm on the platform and I mean, I'm on dozens of them, Twitter or X, I guess, as it's now called, Instagram, um, TikTok, Hive, Tribal, Threads. I'm on Blue Sky, but my handle is always at Lady Sam XOXO. And then on Instagram and TikTok, I have series accounts, which is at Council of Myths.
Okay, cool. So, one more question, well, a few more questions before we bring this to a close and whatnot. Your book, how is it? Because you had said something about like you actually want to market your book different because your book is different. So, tell me exactly how is your book different than what's already currently in the genre?
So I've asked friends that have already read it, like, what would you compare my book to if you had to compare it to something else that's out there? And they have a hard time coming up with an answer because my book has a lot going on. It's first person, multi POV, and by multi, I do mean multi. There are 12 POVs. Um, so I mean, the closest thing I can always compare it to is Game of Thrones. Um, but because there's so many different storylines going on that, do will eventually all, come together into one big, you know, climax. Um, because of that, it's very hard to compare my book to other things. I do my best to be like, okay, well, these elements are similar to this. So if you like this, then you'll at least like this part of my book, but then, hopefully you end up liking it as a whole. But it's hard to compare the thing as a unit to one other thing or multiple other things.
Okay. And so I guess that gives you a multitude of avenues the way that you can approach marketing your book because it offers so much to the readers if I'm understanding you correctly, right?
Right. And yeah, it's about finding the people that like those different elements, but might like the other elements that are involved in it. So that's, it casts a wide net, but then you've got to find the specific branch of readers that are like, well, I like that, all of these as a whole have come together.
Okay. And it sounds like, well, I guess my question to you would be how daunting of a task, if it was daunting for you, to actually, put all those elements in a book and make them still relatable to the reader?
Um writing it was not daunting at all. Structuring it maybe a little bit because I had to figure out a timeline for the events that were happening, but actually writing it was not at all. The most daunting part of the whole process is actually, figuring out how to market the thing. So, what is going to get people to read it. But actually putting it together was not a big deal.
Okay. So let me before I cut you loose and enjoy your Saturday, let me give you a bit of marketing advice if you don't mind. You have great reviews on Amazon. You can actually take those reviews, turn them into TikToks and other various forms of social media content. And that's one of the easiest ways to market your book. It's already been validated by others. And so it makes it easier for a person that may be on the fence of buying your book to see that other people have broad read your book and left an honest review and be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go check her out based upon that she does have these reviews. So that's one of the most simpler ways, that you could actually keep the uh, momentum of your book out there. I think a lot of self-published authors fail to do that on a consistent basis. Like if you have to run those doggone reviews 2, 3 times a week, then so do it. You have to keep in mind, unless you go viral, only a couple of hundred people, if that, are seeing your post. So you keep that in front of them, and then what happens is around the seventh time, it's like that's the rule of thumb. Seventh time you see something, you're bound to react to it. And once they see it enough, they'll at least go to your Amazon page or wherever you have that book available and check it out. Um, with that being said and whatnot, thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. Uh, do me a favor, and since you are fairly new being a self-published author, but you've been, on this journey for a minute, could you impart with a bit of advice for up and coming authors that may find themselves, stuck and not sure which way to go? They have this great idea in their head, they're not sure how to execute it.
Write down at least the basic part of your idea and then walk away from it for however long you need to. If you have to write out a couple of scenes, definitely do that, but don't feel like you have to start compiling the story immediately. Just take it one step at a time. And even if that means walking away from it to get a clearer head and putting that whole thing together in your own time. I mean, that's what I had to do with mine. And it eventually came together in the way that I wanted it.
Well, congratulations, congratulations. With that being said, I am DK Walker. You have been listen to that's if you listen to it on audio and watching. Listen up, I got a story to tell podcast. Do me a favor, if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, leave me an honest review of the show. If you're watching me on YouTube, subscribe to my channel, like, comment, and share. And with that being said, I will catch you good folks next week. Samantha Renee, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Have a blessed one.
You too.
This episode of Listen Up, I Got a Story to Tell podcast has ended. But please be sure to subscribe for more literary strategies and tactics to help you create the profitable, successful author career you've always wanted. And don't forget to rate and leave a review so we can continue to bring you the best author and book-related content. See you on the next episode.